Welcome to Honest Car Reviews, and this is the brand new Range Rover Sport plug-in hybrid. The Sport is the slimmer, more athletic Range Rover, and it has received a fairly substantial update. And not only that, it has received a brand new hybrid system as well. The Sport is supposed to be the more sporty, athletic Range Rover, and I think that Range Rover has done it, but it's still very, very sleek, especially in the front. You can see how the front lights curves towards the side. It's not as angular as the previous Range Rover Sport, but it has that classic front grille, so that is still there. This is the first edition, which brings a few changes. One of them is the rims. Those are 23 inches and they are 285 in the front and 285 in the rear as well. They're absolutely massive, but they are needed to just fill out those wheel arches. This is the Santorini black paint, and when the sun hits right now, you can see the metallic flakes. The design in the rear has been updated quite substantially, more so than the front, but in general the Sport is very restrained. There are no shouty edges on this car, and on the rear here there's no badge to show what the power plant is. The power plant is a V6 3-liter. It has a combined output of 510 horsepower, which gives this Range Rover Sport a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time in just over 5 seconds. The official VLTP pure electric range is 110 kilometers, one of the longest pure electric range in the entire plug-in hybrid segment. But this is the 2023 model, and there has been an update. So this is not the most powerful hybrid Range Rover Sport anymore. The new one has about 550 horsepower thanks to a bigger electric or more powerful electric engine. But since you have a quite or very big battery, you need to put it somewhere, of course, which means that the floor in the luggage space has been raised slightly. The official luggage capacity numbers will be shown in the screen now. The wheel arches are huge and there's a lot of sound insulation, but you can fold down the rear seats in the 40-20-40 configuration. Love that. And since this car is fitted or has air suspension, you can lower and raise the ride height in the rear with use of these buttons here, and these ones control the rear seats. The reversing camera is mounted right here, which means that it will get dirty quite quickly. It has a washer functionality here, but maybe they should have hidden it underneath so it doesn't get dirty that often, especially in the winter when it's snowing and all of that. There are two shark fins, and one houses the digital rear view mirror, and since it's mounted up here, it never gets dirty. A very smart trick by Land Rover. You can see that the car is quite low because the air suspension has lowered itself to its lowest setting to make it easier to go in and out of the car. You can see the panoramic sunroof here. The driver's seat is in a quite aggressive position, but I still have a decent amount of knee space, a lot of foot space, and a decent amount of head space as well. This comes with the first edition, so it's carbon fiber matte and just looks incredible. Absolutely incredible. The seat of itself, lot of lower thigh support. You can lean the rear seat as well individually, and even have a sunshade. The fit and finish of the individual climate control here in the rear looks great as well. Just a lovely place to be in. Meridian sound system sounds incredible. The power, the bass is a bit on the softer side, which is to my liking, just has a lot of power and sounds incredible at whatever level you play your music at. The interior of the Range Rover Sport is of course very similar to the interior of the new Range Rover. The steering wheel is a bit different though. The new digital gauge cluster, the new infotainment system, and the controls for the AC and the gear shift selector. Of course, the terrain response function as well, and the wheel to change into different driving modes. The seat is big, it's soft, and it hugs you at just the right spots. You can drive really long distances in this car, and the seat will be up to the task of keeping you comfortable. The infotainment system, the latest generation, I really like it. Very simple to use. Not the most colorful infotainment system, but it does everything that you need it to do, and it's very quick. The digital gauge cluster gives you all the necessary information. A bit of a faff to change. You have to press this button and go to display layout. Then you can change it. And to go back, you press to the left, info panel, and then you can change it depending on which information you want to have. For example, the trip meter. If I were you, I would change this when you are not driving, because there are a lot of menus that you need to go in and go out to change what is on the digital gauge cluster and the head-up display. Speaking of the head-up display, especially when it's dark outside and in tunnels, you see the reflection of the screen on the windscreen, which looks a bit poor. I've never seen it in other head-up displays in other cars. The right side here, button to set the speed, to reset the previous speed that you were in. Button to activate heated steering wheel, and buttons to decrease the distance to the car in front of you or increase. Very simple, very usable. Wheel to control the volume, and all in all, the things that you use the most feels like it has given the most amount of buttons, which I really like. A cabin that you want to sit in, can sit in, and just enjoy the Range Rover Sport experience, because it is an experience to drive this car. A unique experience, that's for sure. Unfortunately, I don't have any battery left, and that does mean that the hybrid system, which normally when there's battery in it, is very smooth. The electric engine really adds to the luxury experience. When the gearbox shifts, or when you need to drive from a standstill, or whatever, you need to pass someone, there's always direct electric power to be had. But when the battery has run out, there's no battery, the petrol engine does kick in a lot, and sometimes it feels like the car is in an unnecessarily low gear. The new Range Rover Sport has air suspension, and that just adds to the cruising capabilities of this car. Even though the tires are extremely wide, the air suspension really helps soak up the bumps, and the setup is very soft. So you have a bit of that flying carpet moving about ride. The car starts in comfort. There's echo, there's dynamic mode, there's grass, gravel and snow, mud and wheel track, sand, rocky surfaces, and wading, so when you go into water. Now, since this Range Rover is a sport, we have to test it on a typical Swedish B road, and the gearbox can be changed into S as well, and you do have paddles behind the steering wheel in real metal. Obviously it's a big car, an SUV, so I have to take that into consideration. And it's not an SVR product. There's a lot of turbo torque that kicks in at about 3,500 RPM. Peak power is actually reached at quite high RPMs. The gear shifts are not that quick, and it feels like there's a quite big delay before power continues on. And if the car would have a charged battery, I think that experience would be different. That the electric engine will also make the car feel faster, but also fill out the power, especially during the gear shift. The steering is not heavy at all, very, very light. Obviously set up to be laid back, but when you start to push it, especially in corners, you reach understeer very quickly. It's a heavy car, and it's very difficult to notice how the front loads up and how the understeer comes in. The braking pedal is quite soft, but the action of the brakes is very easily readable. Very confident, inspiring, doesn't move about that much during hard braking. It feels rather settled down. So the brand new Range Rover Sport is definitely more athletic in its exterior. But in terms of the driving experience, it's still towards the softer side. Not as athletic as I thought the Sport would suggest. But with that huge pure electric range of 110 kilometers, you can theoretically and practically use this in pure electric for the majority of your time when you drive this car. 510 combined horsepower is also plenty for a car of this size and weight. So if you want something that is a bit more restrained, it doesn't have the footprint of a Range Rover, and definitely more restrained and more British than, for example, a BMW X7, then the brand new Range Rover Sport is definitely the one for you. And that's my final conclusion of the brand new Range Rover Sport. See you next time.